So, Snake River Falls is closing. A staple for more than 30 years in the park, it's meeting its end. This doesn't really come as a surprise for many, as it's something Cedar Point does fairly often, but the main reason you close a ride permanently is to replace it with something else. And this case is no different. So the question is, what's going there? I want to dive into a pretty big theory about what could assume the footprint of Snake River Falls, but before I do, I think it's only fitting to first give my thoughts on the ride leaving. I think it isn't particularly surprising that this ride was chosen, but it doesn't mean that it's not a sad loss. The park only has 2 rides that have water features, and they're both in the same area. Given that this summer has been in the high 80s for months straight, people get hot in the park, and rides with water features like these are often the ideal solution for cooling off. However, in this specific case of Snake River Falls, the ride has been less and less reliable, and in this year, I think it was closed more than it was open. And I think because of the ride's age, with the manufacturer being out of business, they're having trouble sourcing parts, and so it's spending a lot of time down. So I think it was ultimately not a choice they wanted to make, but one that they had to make. So what's gonna go there? I heard another channel mention that the space isn't actually very large, and they are correct if you only look at the actual ride's footprint. However, I think what's really being overlooked here is the overall space that we have, and not just the ride space. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a whole lot more than just Snake River Falls available. That's what. In this area is the museum, a large building which has been shut down for 3 years now, and it seems to me that they don't really intend to reopen it. I did peek through the crack of the door and found it completely gutted inside. There's nothing in there anymore. And last year they also shut down a pizza place that's just around the corner from the museum, leaving only a small portion of the bar next to it open. Additionally, they got another building nearby that isn't being used, Watkin's Hatchery. This used to be a food spot focusing on vegetarian and healthy options, but then it was replaced by Watkin's Hatchery, a bar, only to not ever really be open. And it has a substantial amount of seating around it too. There's also the showers that may not be as necessary now that there's one less water ride in the park. And when you add up all this together, the amount of space left for the replacement ride actually increases by approximately like 30%. It doesn't stop there though. There's actually way more space that's currently being unused that is all indirectly connected to this particular area. Just across the river from the back of Snake River Falls is a small island, and this island is Adventure Island, and it was briefly the home of Forbidden Frontier, a small attraction for kids located on the island. However, this attraction was closed in 2023 and replaced by nothing. The only other thing on this island is a part of the track for Millennium Force, meaning that the island is completely uninhabited. That doesn't stop there though. The river itself also used to be a very large riverboat ride called Snake River Expeditions. They closed that ride this year as well, meaning that the entire river, as well as the ride's entrance and Camp Snoopy, is completely unused. When you begin assembling all this space together, it makes the single largest piece of unused space that's currently inside the park, meaning that it provides the largest opportunity for expansion that the park currently has. And I want to focus on that word, expansion. I want to hover on that for a moment because Tony Clark used that word in his announcement of the ride's closure. He didn't say new attraction, new ride, but instead specifically chose the word expansion. To me, this signifies a multifaceted change to the park and not simply a new ride. And so, with all that said, let me begin to theorize what I think this could look like. On either side of Snake River Falls is the river on the east, and on the west is a bridge with a pond near Maverick on the other side. Snake River Falls is flanked by a large concrete pad that's filled with water when it's in operation that makes it look as though a red brick bridge that connects 2 areas of water. However, with Snake River Falls going away, this bridge will now be connecting the pond on Maverick side to nothing on the Snake River side. So I think the first thing that they need to do is come up with some kind of water feature to connect these 2 sides logically. The easiest thing that I can see from looking at the map is to fill most of the area in with dirt, but to expand the river over to meet the bridge to make it appear as though it's connected to Maverick's pond under the bridge. This dramatically reshapes the area, meaning that if we demolish the museum and attached bar and closed restaurant, then we have a new area that's the perfect size for a new flat ride or a small family ride of some kind, and maybe some drink or snack stands. Alongside the river on the south, I think Watkin's Hatchery could be reworked into a new, interesting kind of restaurant, with waterside seating being a main selling point of eating there. The new and improved Watkin's Hatchery instead could sell things like shrimp po' boys and gumbo. And then along the north side of the river expansion is a perfect corridor to turn it into a pathway to gain access to the island with a cool bridge that goes over the river. So what would be on the island then? Well, this is a little bit complicated to answer, and while I'd love to say that they're going to build an entirely new themed area here, I think there's a few complications to that answer. The first is that Millennium structure kind of splits the island into two distinct halves, without much option to get around it except on the northeastern side of the island. The second is that the island already has existing structures from being the Forbidden Frontier. This means that any new structure would have to work around the existing structure, or they'd have to demolish a lot of perfectly good structure in order to make room. And the reality for me is that I don't think they'll want to do a ton of demolishing, especially since there's already a rough layout put in place of what the area looks like. So instead, I think they'll want to do a bit of repurposing existing structure and supplementing with additional structure. And it would look something like this. The bridge would cross the river on the west side, entering the island from what's currently a small pond. This half of the island, I think, along the nearby river and unused land nearby Professor Dilbert's fling is just the right size and layout to do a low to the ground launched coaster. Or maybe this is a good opportunity to introduce one of RMC's single rail system coasters. These coasters can have a compact layout and would also be a brand new type of coaster that Cedar Point has yet to have seen. So this would be the easiest big draw of the new area and will bring much needed attention to the island. And a big part of why I think Forbidden Frontier previously failed. On the eastern side of the island, I think they would keep much of the existing structure, including the playground, and turn this into a combination playground, snack and shop area. I think of this area more as like an extension of Camp Snoopy, something that I think they could take from figurative to literal by adding a bridge leading from the Camp Snoopy to the island via the old Snake River Expedition's entrance. This entire plan could bring a new coaster, a new flat ride, a new restaurant, a snack stand and a drink stand, and reinvigorating an existing playground as well as potentially other miscellaneous shops. It would repurpose the ride entrance and Camp Snoopy for Snake River Expeditions, and it's really a 1-2-3 punch combo that would solve a lot of unused areas all at once. So now the question is, will they actually do this? Actually, yeah, I think they will. Here's why. If you look at the photos and videos of the Forbidden Frontier back when it was built, it becomes pretty clear that Cedar Point put some serious resources into making this island put together enough to have visitors on it. The island's got clean pathways, a nice playground, existing structures, water features, tunnels, and so much more that Cedar Point built on the island for the Forbidden Frontier. And currently, every single bit of that is going completely unused only a few years after they invested the intense amount of money to build it all. And if I was a manager at Cedar Point, I would be looking at ways that I can take the investment I recently made in this area and finding new ways to repurpose it to turn it from a failed attraction into a successful area. This plan could be exactly what they need to make that happen. But what if they don't do it? In that case, what I actually think they'll do is build a large coaster rather than a compact one that goes from this area over to the island and back. My brother thinks that they could still do a wooden GCI coaster if they wanted to go this route, but I don't think they would be able to make the low launch coaster work in this situation. And while this isn't my preferred outcome, I still think this is a really good one. The amount of space allows for not just a coaster, but a really sizable coaster, which gives them more room to do something outstanding. And I think the real appeal of this option is to continue building Cedar Point's name as a roller coaster park. My brother does have an additional theory of his own. He thinks that they could take the museum and transform it into a restaurant, using the kitchen from the former pizza place attached to it, and then theme the area based on the museum. It could have park memorabilia on the wall, just like how Miss Keats does, and I think this is a cool idea, but I personally think that another restaurant in that area will only work alongside at least a couple new attractions. And for more people to eat at these places, more people need to be hanging around these areas. So that's it for today. What do you think they're gonna do with Snake River Falls? Do you think they'll do anything with the surrounding areas? Let me know in the comments below, and I look forward to hearing your discussion, and I hope you tune in for the next video. And as always, remember that you are beautifully and wonderfully made, and you are loved, and that's the whole point. See you next time.